Welcome back to Arkansas Bigfoot. Once upon a time in a land not too far outside the back door. Yeah, I was looking at the channel last night and realized that there was over 150 videos that we posted on there, and we've got enough viewers and subscribers now to have a small town. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new faces that have came on recently, and every once in a while we try to bring everybody up to speed. And I think today we're going to start at the genesis and talk about the evolution of it all. It's been a crazy ride and a crazy trip, but if you want to hear it, let's get started.
Alrighty.
Well, I think this is pretty much the starting point right here. I came back here one day to cut some corkscrew saplings and some other little limbs and stuff to make some walking sticks and artwork with. Got down over the creek and
You had water in it then.
yeah, it had just a little bit of water in it. But everything about that day just kind of felt a little different than normal. I had gotten not too far back into here, maybe another 30 or 40 yards, and out in front of me I heard crash, and looked up. Great big red rusty brown two legs running, beating through the brush like crazy, going the other direction. I wasn't sure if my eyes were playing tricks on me, if I was hallucinating at the time, what it was, but after I got done cutting the limbs, I went back to the house and I told Rachel about it, and I don't remember if we came back out later that day or if it was the next day.
It feels like it was the next day, maybe because I had to work or something. And a lot of what you're seeing now has changed since then, and those early videos are quiet, and we didn't know.
Yeah, we weren't sure what we had or what was going on. We're walking through the woods whispering to each other.
Look at this.
But when we came back and started exploring a little farther, started noticing some really peculiar structures and limb arrangements, I guess is what he would have called them, to not know a better word to call them. But
We've pretty much grown up in woods of some nature or another, and you kind of know what's natural.
But we suspected that we probably had one of the big hairy visitors back here, and at the time we just thought, oh, it's one passing through, and we weren't sure how to proceed with it or do anything about it. And we started hanging a apple up on one of these little structures back here. And the first time, I think,
Let me through this.
There we go. First time, I think it was gone pretty quick, and then the next time it just kind of stayed there for a few days, or they didn't mess with it. And Then as soon as they realized we were going to keep coming back here and putting some stuff out, it was game on.
Well, the one, I cannot see it. The first rope line.
It's right up here in front of us.
It's just this overgrowth.
But one of the things we immediately started noticing the first few days back here are all these pinned arches and the little glyph figures on the ground. We had gotten to this spot, and it looks totally different today than what it did the first time we saw it. And at the time, I don't know if there's a good way to see it or show it. I'll put one of our pictures up on there.
But this vine.
This vine work was laced around these trees right here,
All the way around.
like it was cordoned off.
And it was tied with bark. Which was being tied with bark, told us that it wasn't just people.
Yeah, something that had fingers and thumbs had to have done that, and we knew that there hadn't been any people back here for a long time outside of us.
And we had hung an apple with a string first because we wanted to kind of ensure it wasn't
raccoons or possums or some kind of
deer or anything. But then this glyph, show that. It was this, we call him a Union Jack, and it's remained.
But the vine work has kind of fallen down now over the course of the last several months, and this big triangle glyph was not here at the beginning. It was something that came about
February, March.
Yeah, back in February or March. And that big stone was carried up and put up here.
And then the roping and everything changed, so we just left it alone.
But the one that we called Junior, as time evolved, he had started dragging around this old blue packing blanket that we had found out here in the woods, buried under some pine straw.
Way back by that second gifting tree.
And it seemed like it was Linus with his security blanket. He dragged this thing around all over the place, and we found it up here in this location. We found it back in the back towards that big ground structure.
He had taken the blue blanket and all of the little gadgets we were experimenting for a while and brought, marbles and some toys and some different things to see what he liked. And there were specific objects that he seemed to carry around with him. Some were from an old campsite we had found, and we still have those in a certain location. We call it his man cave or hidey hole.
I think we were somewhere right up in this area the first time Rachel saw the big female.
We were right there.
I don't know if we were standing at that structure putting the apple and stuff out.
We were right there, and I saw her. Well, it's overgrown now. That was fall, and you could see straight through. But about 40 yards out, there's some bigger trees, and all this greenery wasn't here. And Ken was filming, and I happened to glance right. We were right back here at this rope structure, and saw her just walk between trees over there near that little bit of a hill. So we don't know if Junior was close and she was trying to distract, or if she just wasn't even cognizant of being physical, but she didn't even look at me. She just went forward.
Strolled between the trees, but
no rush, no thought.
In retrospect, thinking back, I probably am leaning more toward the thought that she let herself be seen for a little bit to kind of distract us to look that direction if he was over here in this little hideout area that we have since called his man cave area, which is straight back through there about 40 yards.
We try not to bother his man cave. I think it was Operation Hairball.
Operation Hairball. We
spent some time back there.
Set up a hair trap box and a little miniature camera under a shield on the tree, but a lot of the lean-tos and glyphs and structures that are here now weren't here then. If you go back and look at some of those early videos, it's pretty obvious to see. Like this big double and pinned arch, it's pulled and laced and twisted around right here. That kind of evolved a little later on into it. But we knew it was getting serious when we started finding footprints in that little creek that we crossed on the way in here on today's video. Was the first really big, nice footprint that we found.
It was decent. What was it, about 14?
No, that one was bigger than that. It was around 17 inches.
I'm remembering another one. Yeah.
And then we found some right down in here where this crosses. Of course, most of the time through fall, winter, and early spring, there's water all over the place down here, so it's really easy to leave footprints when you're walking around. At one point we had a huge Union Jack structure come up, and when I get up a little closer I'll point the camera over to it so you can see.
I think that was our first experience with Big Daddy or Anku, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that tree that's leaning there had another tree the same size of it leaned up, and then the centerpiece put in, and it was a big Union Jack structure, and that appeared out here. But it's since, I don't know where where the other tree or log has gotten to, because it's not anywhere close to the area on the ground now.
I believe we captured that on video when it happened, but yeah, it's since disappeared.
But we've tried all kinds of crazy stuff out here to get reactions out of them. We played the Native American drum out here. We've used 432 hertz music and walked around trying to see if that would pique their curiosity. Oh Lord, I can't even remember now without going back and looking at some of the video titles of all the stuff that we've tried. It's just been an ongoing process.
The gifting was more, I don't know if it was really to habituate as much as recognize that we understood they were here. And it seemed there was a lot of response to it. And a lot of people do worry, and I know that there's been negative results for some if they stop gifting. We found that if we at least communicate with them and let them know that we're not going to be out, they don't come to the house in a hateful way, or they haven't done anything retaliatory.
We've heard them right inside the woods behind the house before, and You found a little A-shaped limb glyph laying in the doorway of the porch just a few days ago.
Had that mylar balloon right by that same door. But they seem to understand that's the door, that's the boundary. But the other thing too, I think, is with the way their mind speak is, I've thought about, a lot of times if they're trying to communicate with someone and they're not getting it, or they're not understanding that that's the thought, given. Maybe they get frustrated, or maybe they're trying to communicate in other ways and we're not listening.
But a lot of our early videos and early attempts, we weren't as in tune with it as we are with them now, and them with us, and it was kind of a trial and error thing, trying to see what would work and what wouldn't work. And
definite progression. Looks like a lily.
We have since come to realize that there's quite a few of them in their family unit that traverse back and forth out here.
Can't tell. Yeah, there are several.
Yeah, we tried game trail cameras out here. The only real success we ever had with that was the very first night, and got Junior peeking over a bush and got his face on there, the shadow silhouette of his face and eyes. You could see the outline of his nose and lips and all of that.
And then that weird picture you got, but that wasn't them.
They figured out that game pretty quick, and we'd come out and the camera would be laying on the ground under the tree we strapped it to. And then I took cable ties and fixed it where it couldn't be unstrapped, and then they would break a small sapling with
put it in front of the camera.
And put it in front of the camera where it couldn't take a picture. All you'd get was the picture of the tree being placed in front of the camera.
They never hurt the camera, they just don't like it. This is
But they started
1, 2, 3
sounding off that first night after we put the camera out here. They were right up behind the house, like they were fussing at us because it was out here. And we took it down, and we've tried it intermittently ever since. We'll bring it out and set it around with some of the locations that Rachel's got some stuff developed in, but for the most part we don't annoy them with it because it's just not something that they particularly appreciate us trying down here. And we've been startled by them. We've heard grunts. They've tossed some limbs our direction a few times. A couple nights we heard rock clacking, and we went out toward the pond, and one of them was on the opposite side of the pond throwing grapefruit and cantaloupe sized rocks towards us in our direction into the water.
That was one of our early night walks before we really knew Junior at all.
And I think that is in some ways a game that they play just to see what your reaction is going to be, and if you're going to give up and run the other way, or if you stay engaged and interested in it. And they've had ample opportunity to do harm if that was what their intention was, and it's never happened.
Yeah, I think we had one full moon video we were trying to do, and I we still aren't sure if it was Big Daddy, but a limb came out of nowhere, and it was several feet, 20 feet or so in front of us. It wasn't near us, and I know they're better aim than that. But it was, as it turned out, there was a more negative energy working out here, and it seemed like they were trying to expel it or get rid of it, and I felt like he was trying to get us out of the space for our own good, and we complied. But it's never a dull moment. We never know what we're going to get. Or
we've seen them several times in our peripheral, moving through the brush and the trees. A lot of the viewers have picked them out where they see them standing or sitting behind a brushy cluster or a big tree or something.
We've had them out in the open, just waiting for us to leave the
got
food.
a few pictures of them standing out in the open. We got them on video. Well, we got Junior and a big gray one on video just a couple weeks ago.
And that gray one is, I think, an older brother to him. He is really hard to see. He's got like the best natural color for all of this. And he's probably been around since the beginning, and we just literally haven't been able to see him.
He blends in so well that had he not actually moved and took steps and swung his arm on the video, you'd think it was just a giant tree trunk.
We think, with Junior moving toward him, he seemed to move toward Junior simultaneously, and couldn't hardly decide which way to keep the shot.
We're kind of jumping around on timeline and topic, but it's hard to not do that. We're out here all the time with it, and a lot of the things that we've experienced and have happened, even if they were 6 or 7 months ago, it's still as fresh in our mind as if it was last week. So we
started out with this one gifting tree, this first one that's in front of us.
Yeah, and somewhere I've got a picture on the computer of what it looked like originally, and I'll put that on here.
And it was some months, several weeks later, that we felt inclined to develop the second one, and that's where they built the big ground nest. Almost the same. I mean, like within days.
When we really started experiencing some of what we would have considered at the time the really weird and high strangeness element of it, we caught, at one point back in the back, Rachel was running the camera, and we heard a voice come in through the camera, Chia-ho, something.
Look at this. It's crazy. It's like this huge fog. The curtain. Look.
In a type of a...
I think we pinned it down to Choctaw.
And then we started experiencing the orbs out here. Started experiencing other apparitions out here. A lot of other little elemental things that are playing around. One of our subscribers comically calls this Maleficent's enchanted forest. So I'm inclined to agree with him.
It's gotten that way.
But we keep their grocery store fairly well stocked, usually at least twice a week, if not 3 times. And
The sand.
yeah, I brought some of that sand out of the box and dumped it. And they stole the bucket.
No, it's back there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they didn't use it.
No, I just threw his baggies on the ground like normal.
I need to hang a sign.
Last week we brought a 5-gallon bucket out and set by the tree in hopes that they might want to throw some of their stuff in it, but now you can't have everything, right?
They might get it eventually.
Well, we found a big handprint in the sandbox, twice the size of my hand.
Oh yeah.
They've left stacks of rocks here at this tree,
Well, yeah.
and then the rocks got kind of migrated around to the other tree back in the back.
So I left my handprint in it and going this way. But if you stand over here, it looks like somebody put a little hand in it going that way. Mine is like this. But this one looks like it's going this way.
Well, the other day when we were out here, that red coffee can was full of vegetable stew. It's completely wiped out. We've given them all kinds of different things out here. They don't seem to mind much of anything except unripe grapes. And oranges. They don't seem to like oranges that much. But if it's got apple or peanut butter attached to it, it's gone.
Yeah.
And I'll try to post some different pictures throughout the video of what some of these locations look like early on, just so you can see the transformative difference of it. It still blows my mind when I see some of the early videos and then compare it to, you know, just the last 2 or 3 months. We've done night videos and got eye shine and got a lot of vocals and tree knocks. One night we were sitting out here and we got them all wired up on espresso coffee and a bunch of sweet stuff that we'd left in the tree, and they were just carrying on like 5-year-olds on a sugar buzz. And we had this great big huge orb fly up and burst right in front of the camera, right in front of where we were standing.
Was that the same night?
Yeah, we got wood knocks on the voice recorder several times and got them where it sounded like he was kind of chanting or doing something, like he was almost singing to himself or something.
We're not sure.
And when we say he, usually 90% of the time, Junior is the culprit.
Yeah.
He's got little siblings out here, and of course, Big Mama that we call Maya.
And older siblings
and
that I
Big
haven't
Daddy,
identified yet.
which is Anku. Did you hear him?
I just saw him move straight across on that farthest tree line that you can see.
That wasn't Junior. That was one of the little ones. Their voice was too shrill.
I'm checking the left just to see if I see any more movement. Past that deadfall, you see that deadfall on your left. If we see movement, that's where it'll be if they stay going left. But they're getting about that age now. That's kind of the, you know, Junior acted. He was a little wild child for a little while.
But that same night after the espresso coffee, he pulled this big tree down. We had not had any kind of wind or storm or rain during that night. And we came out the next day and this tree was half leaned over. And then they made these arches and structures all around it. And then over this past week and a half, 2 weeks, it's come down the rest of the way. But all of the glyph symbols, everything else, are all still intact.
We brought dowsing rods out here to test these glyphs. This one in front of you is one example of a protective glyph. Let's see, we brought the EMF meter to read the
dowsing rods primarily. You know, initially people used them to find water and things like that, but they are also used to find anything that you can focus your thought or.
Right.
They will pick up energy fields. They will point direction to lost objects. Just, it's endless what you're able to do with them. So we started with that because you were very well adept at doing that.
It was just a lot more natural. And
brought the EMF meter out here and started running it around some of these big pinned arches and glyph structures, and we'd get huge spikes in EMF readings.
The bigger one we had like 235, I think. But they've been really good to share and show us what all these things are for, if we ask. There's just so much that sometimes I think we don't break it down every little inch. We just try to appreciate it.
Yeah, after the first 2 or 3 months, it got to the point where we were seeing so much activity, different things being constructed overnight and different footprints being left and different things that we would find out here, like dog toys out of the backyard where Junior had come up and snitch them and leave them laying out in the woods. That, I don't know what else to say other than you see it so often, it doesn't seem like it
doesn't
is.
Strike you like the first time.
Right.
Now, if something disappears from the yard, we're usually watching where we walk out here, because they'll bring us back to it. They don't steal it, they just like the game.
Let's see, he took a fishing pole from up by the pond. He took a leather work glove. He's taken balls, the little golf balls and little dog toy balls, and brought them way out here. Now the dog has got his area of the yard that we let him out in, and he doesn't have access to this back here. He's a little Boston Terrier, so.
And his responses are funny. Sometimes he's never cowered away from being out there even at night, but he will just hold.
Sometimes he'll just stand there and stare at the tree line
the
for
darkness.
half an hour, just staring.
But if we go in, he's absolutely coming with us.
Well, he knows when they're up there near the back of the house, but he doesn't really bark or carry on about it, and he doesn't try to run off from it. It's more of a curiosity thing. He'll just stand there and stare at the woods like he's trying to figure out exactly where they're at.
I think we had 3 wood knocks one night when I had gotten home from work. It's been late winter, and
yes, my cell phone is in my pocket, so that means we get a flyover visit.
18.
That's something that started back in April, May.
Maybe. Yeah.
Seemed like every time we'd come out here with the phone.
Come on, let's get it done. I was talking about those 3 wood knocks that we'd gotten. It was late on a Friday night, about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd gotten home from work, and the Boston, his name is Rocket, he heard it, and his ears went straight up, and he was headed for the door. He wanted to know, but he dropped it. He didn't growl really, or and come fall, we'll be able to see all the way through this. But we have noticed that the greenery has changed on a lot of this, where it was extremely dense at one point. It's almost like the leaves have been stripped off or something, so maybe for their own visibility. I think that's Jughead. There's his toes. But the males, I believe, have a narrower heel, and the females tend to be wider. So I think this is Jughead, one of the younger ones.
We've told everybody repeatedly we're not that far off of a busy traveled road, so a lot of times you get road noise, and there's a train track that parallels it, and you can hear the train whistle in the background, so sometimes we get that echoing through here.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. We're in Arkansas. It's populated. There's people and traffic everywhere. So. Doesn't seem to bother these guys at all.
I think they've been around it for so long now.
Yeah, we did the video that was called Bigfoot in the Backyard, and talking about a lot of accounts where people, even in more congested areas than what we have had sightings and experiences where they come up and get into the garden or the backyard or around the edges of a playground or something like that, listening to kids play. I think that's a curiosity thing. What else have they got for entertainment other than to make these stick symbols out here?
A lot of people go to an airport or a mall and they'll sit there and people watch.
People watch.
Why wouldn't they?
There's another example of one that showed up over the course of this last few months, and that's a ground
Double
glyph.
protection.
Ground glyph with a Union Jack.
That must have been a really bad spot if they had to doubly protect it. But they seem to understand these portals extremely well, and we found that a lot of their glyph work is in an attempt to block things that don't belong, energies that might want to try to come into our 3D world.
You know, in all fairness, I think we kind of had a leg up on identifying some of these things because Rachel and I have both had a history of experiences with paranormal stuff. And so when some of these things started happening out here, it was easy to put two and two together and realize what it was that we were looking at. And we've heard a lot of people also mention whenever they've had the persistent Bigfoot activity in their area, how the paranormal activity follows suit with it. You know, these doorways open up, these portals open up, and it swings both ways. Stuff can come in, stuff can go out. And you can't always filter what comes in and out, but that's what some of these protective glyphs that they have created are. They're a type of a filter to keep some of this stuff away.
Yeah, I don't know if they control every inch of it, but
let's see, I made some orgone cubes and brought out here little orgone energy blocks. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's copper and quartz and other metallic like aluminum shavings, and it's all compressed into a resin block. Orgone energy. There's so many different videos and informational sites that I'm not going to sit here and try to break down and explain every bit of it
it's
at the moment.
Orgone.
But we hid those around the bases of some of these trees back here, and I just wanted to see if they could sense or feel the energy in relation to them, if they would find them. And they definitely found them. When we came back on the next time, they had gathered up all of the stones that they had left around all these different trees in different spots and made a circle, and had the orgone blocks inside the circle with glyphs laying on the outer edges of the circle. And I'll show that to you in just a few minutes, but there's another example of one of these protective glyphs on the trail.
Right in the middle of this crossroads.
These little creeks and all of this woods goes back a long distance. I mean, a long distance. I'm guessing 6-7 miles before it hits another blacktop going straight back the way the camera's pointing.
We don't have all of that, but it connects.
Yeah, it all connects together, so they've got a huge corridor to run up and down in. And it is kind of like a shape of an irregular triangle. You know, from the house it's narrow, and then it just keeps spreading out the farther back that it goes. So, and they've got plenty of places to get into and go to,
and we have been back.
We've hiked all back through that area, back into the boggy bottoms, and there's a place back there that's got some of the old tree bends, that the trail marker tree bends like they would use in the 1800s to mark game trails or footpath trails.
And we're actually anxious for fall, not just be get rid of this heat maybe, but so that we can actually access that a little easier back there. The ticks have been bad this year, the mosquitoes, and
it's a lot easier for you guys to see, obviously, when there's not foliage. So, but this is the second gifting tree, and we kind of discovered it about 2 months into coming back here. When we first started, we weren't sure what their actions or reactions would be and how they would respond to us being back in here. So we kind of stayed up in that front area for the most part the first couple months, and then we started
gave it boundary,
kind of venturing back a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper each time.
And sometimes they would take us on a walk. I mean, it felt like
there's a peanut butter cup baggie from the treats, and there's the container that the
seed block.
Yeah, the seed block, corn, sweet feed, bird seed, molasses, jello. I took the top off of it and tore it up.
Punched it.
Like I said earlier, most of the time in the spring, winter, and fall, this has got water all over the place back through here. In that area that I'm directly pointing at, we call Skunk Butt Island, mainly because it smells like it is their outhouse. So that's kind of how it got its nickname. So when you hear us refer to Skunk Island, that's what we're talking about. And that is the area where we got them on video here a couple weeks ago. We were out here doing the tree and getting ready to wrap up the video for the day, and the big gray one stood up, and I saw him, and then he froze, and I was trying to find him again, and then Junior, the black one, took off walking the other direction. So they were out here hanging around waiting for us to leave the food in the trees. It was snack time for them.
Lumpy.
Yeah, we're always finding our turtles out here.
Every day.
I think that's Mr. Lumpy. We've shown him 2 or 3 times now.
He seems to be getting rather comfortable around us. He's just like right out there. Waiting on a girlfriend.
There's all kinds of little teeny tiny things popping around out here.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody trying to get some of the leftover crumbs. We had a white plastic dish tote, like a
sink
something you'd sit down inside the sink, a little dish pan plastic tote, and it stayed out here for a while, and we had sand in it inside that tree to see if they'd leave a handprint or anything in it. And I don't know if it was pushed so far back into the tree they really didn't mess with it. And so we had sit it up here underneath this ground structure that they made. And then everything started getting weird with it. Junior drug up that blue blanket and had a bunch of trinkets and stuff in it. And
well, when they made that glyph, Big Daddy had taken part of the sand and put it in that wheel, and I need to refresh that because you can barely see the sand now. And it had fresh green leaves on top, and from a distance they sparkled. It was almost like
glitter or something.
Like gems, you know. When I glanced, it was just... I don't know.
But the night that they made that wheel out of the stones and the organ blocks, there's a tree over here that's broke about 10 foot, 11 foot up, and they had that dish pan hanging right on top of the break. I'm trying to spot the tree now.
Huh. Is it that one that's leaning?
No, it was about as big around as my forearm. There's so much green in front of everything now, it's kind of hard to see some of this stuff.
It's documented on there.
But it's on one of those videos if you feel like searching back through it to find it. It hung up there for a good couple weeks. There it is, right there.
Oh yeah.
Broke off right there, and they had that pan hanging on it.
And then the pan showed up on the side of the...
Stuck up in the hole on the side of the gifting tree. It was
14. Oh.
Twice as far as I could reach, but
Way up there for a long time it hung.
kind of walk slow because we have a bunch of little copperheads out here, so. Well, that would definitely be a bad day if you were reaching down in the brush and got your fingers next to him.
He hasn't moved.
I always want to watch where you're stepping down at.
Yeah, we found one day.
Now there's another one of those shoes, or what's left of it.
Bad. Way over here. I think I take these and just find a tree to sit
Try
next
to sit down against and have their snacks.
If they're sharing, I think that try to each have a separate space. What we bring for the number of them that are out here is really just nothing but a handful to each one.
But this wasn't even here back in,
December.
you know, fall and through January. I think it wasn't until like February that it really took off.
Mm-hmm. And boy, did it change. It was a lot more green for a little while, and then that finally, I don't know if they pulled off those limbs or if they just died.
But they left that stack of rocks, and it's changed 2 or 3 times over the past couple months. We came out here one day and they were flipped all upside down with the smallest one on the bottom. And you can see laying on the ground little pieces of chipped off rock where they rock clack with it. And so maybe this is their telephone booth. So anyway, here's this stone wheel.
And it started out the organ blocks. This was all sand with little shiny green leaves. I don't know where they got the leaves, but the organ blocks that we brought out are kind of getting a little weather, and we're just these little fellas. And that one's upside down, but they were straight up and down, and these were all, we brought this one later.
Now all of the rocks that are here the quartz rocks and everything else were stuff that they had
left
sit
these
around the different trees.
These three, I think.
And
I don't know where the others came from.
And that quartz point is something Rachel brought out here
This
after
one.
after they made all this,
And I had it up here.
And they moved it back into that, so we just left it.
But a couple times it's changed in the way that Anku. This has changed. It was a square inside of a triangle, and then it was a triangle and a triangle, and now it's changed a little bit again, so I just leave it.
Now out here on the side, it's since been, moved or scuffed around, or whether they dismantled it themselves, or whether it's, maybe a deer walking through here or something that's hit it with a hoof. But
maybe, yeah.
when we first started finding these things on the ground, my thought was that they resembled the old rune script.
Well, I can make something similar, but it's not right.
As time has gone on and I've looked at some of the other things that are out there, I think the closest thing that I've actually seen to a lot of the symbols that they use is the Pictish version of the Ogham.
And after seeing that, I have to agree. It's very old, whatever they use. It's similar to runes, but it's actually different than
kind of a
than
hybridization between runes and Pictic Ogham. There is a difference between the Pictic version and the Irish version in the way that the angles run, but
and then
it seems like it's more in line with the Pictic version, or maybe a cross between that and the runes.
We thought this was kind of fascinating because
it
just showed up, this little pinned arch.
This pinned arch showed up when the wheel showed up.
Or shortly after, yeah. I think they're always trying to communicate, whether by glyph or, mind speak, or I think they're always reaching out, trying to see what's going to work. They'll use these things with or without us. As far
a lot
as
of
the glyphs.
a lot of the things that we've tried out here have evolved into the conversations via mind speak, and then Rachel had a session with the spirit box last week that got some amazing hour-long communication coming through it. A lot of the stuff, just because it made more sense to us to separate it out, Rachel started a channel to kind of categorize a lot of that element of what happens out here into it. We've had a lot of amazing people help us trying to pick apart some of these things that they see, and some of the sounds and some of the communication on.
I think we must have some of the best viewers and subscribers in the world, and their contributions are amazing. I mean, they're just working, and some of what they have found have been maybe some disturbing images. Some of them have been real blessings.
The one night back in February, we came out here for the full moon for a night walk, or basically we just sat out here, and I had a big 3-foot tall canine looking creature come out of that creek bottom and kind of faced me down for several seconds before it turned before it turned around and went back into the woods. And
but almost simultaneously we were recording, and on this hill we were getting an orb. So maybe it
and that's the same night we caught a really good, one of the first really good orbs on video. And
it was kind of
when
white
I'm saying
and pink.
orb, I'm not talking about some little dust bunny floating across the screen. These are legitimate, grapefruit size and larger.
It was
moving,
the distance
moving
that one,
with a conscience. I mean, they're not just fluttering through on the breeze. They're zigzagging and moving in, thinkable directions.
I think that one was kind of white and pink, and I don't know. Whatever that was that thought it was going to approach us quickly changed its mind, so.
But anyway, that's kind of a in the nutshell summary of the evolution of it out here. It doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of everything we've cataloged in the videos and put on the channel. You'll just have to go back and look through them. But we're still just hitting the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. The communications are strong in both locations, and we had a good session yesterday out in the forestry, and we found, as all things are, that everything's connected, so you'll have to keep up with us on that. But it's just amazing and overwhelming and humbling, and to realize how much they've given us to work with,
Had to switch hands again. When you guys see the camera start to shake, it's not from being nervous or anything like that. I had my left hand kind of almost blown completely off, and when I hold the camera with it for any length of time, it starts to shake a little bit because the nerves are shot. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
It definitely makes a life path change.
Yeah.
Out of being a gunsmith.
All right, folks, we appreciate you coming in today. Hit the like, share, and subscribe. Ring the notification bell to keep up.
Oh, and tomorrow we'll be on Manimal Research again.
Well, by the time they see this, it'll be today. So.
Oh, today.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can get it all edited and put on there, because I've got a lot of pictures I'd like to post to it. But anyway,
Okay.
We appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you down the trail. Thanks.